Good day, friends. Derek, that ADU guy here, and I'm back with BiggerPockets to show you how to build your very own ADU from the ground up. You may not be handy. You may be thinking, I can't even swing a hammer, Derek. But what we're going to do is look at every step of the way so you have a good visual understanding of what it takes. So if you're managing the job yourself or if you're managing a contractor, you can revert back to this series and look at each step by step. So we're going to start with planning and zoning. I'm out in front of City Hall right now. That's the hard part, getting past the goalie, actually getting plans submitted and getting approval to actually break ground. So a couple of steps that I recommend you take: look for pre-approved plans in your jurisdiction. Look for an architect or engineer within your circle that you may know, like, or trust, or have somebody else that know, likes, and trusts. Once you have your plans, you can actually start shopping those around to different contractors. I'm gonna go through every step of this process. We're gonna have a video clip from breaking ground, actually digging a hole in a vacant lot, all the way to handing over the keys to the new owner or the new tenant. Follow along. If you like this information, like and subscribe so we can continue to bring you awesome content just like this. Let's get out on the job site. So now that you're familiar with your local zoning laws and you know that you can build an ADU in your backyard and you know how to meet the rules, it's time to decide how you're going to manage the project. So I'll go over a few of the options. Let's start with the DIY build. So this is for somebody who's super handy or maybe has a large network of carpenters and plumbers and electricians in their family or their friend group, and they want to tackle the project themselves. It's also going to take the most time, but you'll save the most money. Next up would be the owner builder. So think about managing the projects, making decisions, going to get the material, contacting subcontractors and managing them independently. You're going to save quite a bit of money this way, but you're going to be really hands-on. And then the next step up would be the I want an ADU now, damn it person who says, just hire it. I don't want to make decisions. I don't want to work on it. This is going to be completely hands-off for the actual homeowner or investor, but you're also going to pay the most for this option. And there are a couple of fringe options available now. Some fintech companies, think Realm or Angie's List. These are companies who are going to help you manage the project. They're going to line up side-by-side bids for you and help you save money with their network and their data collection services. But no matter what you decide to do, just make sure you have a solid plan. The people that I see lose money on an ADU build are people that either don't have a plan or change their plans multiple times throughout the process. So next up in phase one is going to be the site work. So now that we know we meet all the standards, where are we going to put this ADU? We have to create a site plan. And on a site plan, we're going to actually map out to scale where the ADU is going to go in relation to the rest of the lot and any other primary structure on the lot. For example, behind me on this ADU, we had to be 5 feet off of the side yard. We couldn't be any closer than 10 feet from the rear yard. And we had to show all that on paper to get approvals. So we're gonna walk around this lot and I'll talk about a few things that I try to do every time to save money, things that you can do too to save money. For example, try to site the ADU as close as you possibly can to the utilities. The less trenching you have to do, the more money you're gonna save. It's really important that we create our buildable envelope and we get a good visual idea of where it's gonna sit. What I like to do is go out in the yard with stakes and surveyor ribbon and actually stake off on the ground and trace out with a bright ribbon color where that ADU may go. Once you decide on the location and the actual footprint of your ADU, then you can go get plans. Off-the-shelf plans that we talked about earlier, or actually hiring an architect or a draftsman to create those custom plans for you. It's really important that you know where you want to put it. So we'll walk around right now and I'll talk about a few things that you can do to save money. One way you are sure to save money is by not breaking any public utilities. So make sure you call for a locate before you start any digging on your site. Blue is usually water, red is usually power, yellow is usually gas, and green is usually sewer. So before we can build the ADU, we have to prep the site. So here in Oregon, we have a clay, loamy soil, and one of the things that we do is we dig down a couple of feet until we hit native, and then we bring in about a foot of rock on top of a geofabric, and we compact the rock and we set our footings on there. This is the start of a beautiful new ADU. So after the pad is cut, rock is brought in, and it's really important that we get this in level and compacted level, and we do that with a laser. Here on the tripod, you can see the laser, and then we'll use a grade stick out there to make sure everything's flat. Now the pad is ready for forums. It was that first layer of 4-inch rock, and then the top 6 inches are this 3/4 minus. And the finer gravel is gonna compact a lot more. So this is all ready for a roller. After all the rock is brought into the pad, it's rolled with a vibratory roller. So we have a nice, dense, packed surface like this to set footings on. Here's an example of what you would expect for an electrical line trench out to the panel. And then on this side of the ADU, the water line and sewer line come out and go into their respective trenches. The sewer line trench is about 5 feet deep, and in our area, a water line has to be at least 24 inches deep to stay below the frost line. Here's a great example of underground utilities. There's the sewer line coming out of the crawl space into the ditch. We have the water shutoff valve here before it gets backfilled, and the 3-inch PVC DWV comes over here and ties into the sewer main. There's a 6-foot stub up for the clean out, and then on this side we have the 1-inch PVC going into the water meter. Follow these site rules to save as much money as possible on your ADU build. Look for a spot that's flat. So if you're looking for a property where you're going to deploy the ADU strategy, you're looking for a flat lot, you'd like it to be relatively close to utilities. If you already own an existing home and it's on a hillside, you can still build an ADU. It's just gonna cost a lot more money. You're probably gonna have the soil engineered as well as the footings and foundation engineered, which is just gonna drive costs. So look for something similar to this that's flat, close to utilities, and ideally it will have alley access. Here's the UFER where they're gonna bring the power in. You can see the rebar in the bottom of these footings. Here's a sleeve for the sewer as well as some foundation drains. Here we are now with all the footings complete. Rebar is in them, the panels are stacked, everything is supported, and it's ready to pour. Concrete pump is on site. They back the cement truck up to the pump, and then they pump it through this 2-inch hose, and they'll fill these forums. So they're firing up the pump. There's obviously water in the pump before the concrete gets here. The first couple minutes are gonna be really wet. Footings just got poured. Down here is the foot. Here is the stem wall. We'll let these sit for a day and then these will get stripped off. So now that the footings and stem walls have been poured, they're stripping, pulling off all the panels, and scraping them so they won't leave indentations on the next job. So this is a crawl space foundation, also known as a footing and stem wall. You can see there's a footer down low, and then there's a 24-inch stem wall. The plate will be set on top of the stem wall, and then the floor will be hung within that space. We have to have 18 inches of clearance from the bottom of ground to top of material, and this will get backfilled at least 12 inches above the bottom of the footing per our frost line here. Next step will be to start rolling the floor and going vertical with this ADU. The framing crew is on scene. They're plating. We've got 2x6 green board going down on the whole edge. It's got to be bolted to the foundation every 6 feet or within 1 foot of a break. Kyle's doing layout right now. This will be going vertical this week. So here's a great look at the floor framing detail. What we have here are engineered I-joists, and they're hung off of this pressure-treated top plate with an engineered metal bracket. And behind the bracket is a piece of tar paper, so there's no moisture transfer from this engineered product off of the concrete stem wall. Next up, the plumbers are gonna come in and they're gonna do all the underfloor plumbing. This way they don't have to crawl around and work on their backs. They can do it all from above. After they're finished, this whole floor is gonna get sheeted, and after it's sheeted, we can start framing. In some climates, you might choose to do your floor insulation before you actually sheet the floor, but in Oregon or in other rainy climates, we usually do that last. So after the whole place is dried in, the insulators, bless their hearts, will come in through the crawl space and insulate the whole floor. That way we don't have any moisture issues. If it goes in first and it gets rained on and water seeps through the seams and the sheeting, it's gonna push that down and also potentially cause mold issues down the road. So different jurisdictions are going to have different rules, but you have to make sure you know them and follow them. For example, here, we have to call for inspection several times along the way. This had to be inspected before it was poured. It's going to be inspected again before the sheeting goes down, and then there's another dozen inspections before we finish. So make sure you know the rules and you follow them in your area. So after your foundation's in, make sure you backfill with the proper material. So along the edges here, we can use native soil. It's actually dirt that came from the build site. But in front of this ADU, there's going to be a hard surface. We're going to do a concrete patio. So we want to use rock and we want to compact it so that over time that doesn't settle and cause us problems down the road. So a real quick recap of phase one. We talked about knowing the rules at the city, how are you going to manage the project, finding a contractor. We looked at the site, how to plot it, where you're going to put your ADU, how do you meet the standards. We talked about compacting the ground before you set your forums, pouring concrete. We looked at infrastructure. We're going to run over to another ADU right down the street and look at some underfloor plumbing. So we're back on site at the Creekside ADU. All the underfloor plumbing is done. The hot and cold lines are in, the waste line is in, and the system is currently under test. And what that means is we have to pressurize the water lines, and we also have to fill up that stack with water to put 5 PSI on the system. After the inspector comes out and verifies that there's no leaks in either the pressurized system or the drain lines, we can cover it up. So we have all the floor sheeting right here ready to go. Make sure you hit the bell to see the next video that comes out. That's where we're going to go over framing. This is going to go upward. We're going to talk about all the components within the walls, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, HVAC. I'm going to have great videos of the whole process. So whether you're managing the contractor like we talked about earlier, or you're building it yourself, you're going to have a good visual understanding of what's going on. I can't wait to see you guys on the next video.